Welcome to the Sleeping Barber podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of our Barber's Brief. If you're a new listener, Marc and I use this forum to discuss things that have caught our eyes in the last couple of weeks. We cover things like a marketing moment in the news, and we also, probably one of our favorite segments, like the ad of the week, which is always fun to celebrate some great creative. Marc, good morning. Buddy,
Good morning.
how are you feeling?
Well, I can tell you pneumonia is not a whole lot of fun.
No,
but things are on the upswing, I hope. I really hope.
my goodness,
I
guy.
actually appreciate breathing more than I ever have before.
So I don't mean to laugh.
No, go for it.
No, it's kind of serious, but happy that you're on the mend and things are coming around for you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Let's get into this.
Let's get into it. I got the first one.
All right.
Why Tide is shifting to a social-first marketing for its latest NFL blitz. So I picked this up from Marketing Dive. It's just an op-ed, just kind of talking about, if you will, like Tide's new strategy, if you will. So it's no secret, Tide is a long-time NFL sponsor. It's currently shifting its marketing strategy for the 2024-2025 season, NFL season, to focus more on social media, local marketing, and influencer partnerships. The new campaign called hashtag, I don't know if kids do that anymore, Tide Tackles, follows former NFL players as they visit tailgates across the country, showcasing the power of Tide detergent to remove stains, messy game day food.
That's really smart.
It's actually really, really smart.
Yeah.
I can't wait till they go to Buffalo.
Yeah.
The campaign is unscripted, and it aims to capture some of that authentic moment at with regional fan culture kind of really tied to it. Now, Tide is producing over 100 unique assets for the campaign, which will be distributed across, obviously, social media platforms, influencer channels, and Amazon's Thursday Night Football, which they debuted almost 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. By focusing on those local fan bases and leveraging the popularity of social media, the aim is to connect with a wider audience and generate more engagement. Now, finally, this shift in strategy reflects a growing trend that we're seeing across advertisers and marketers towards more of that personalized and localized campaigns. So by prioritizing social, which is more in that real-time nature, and those influencer partnership, they're able to reach a younger, more digital savvy audience and then create more authentic and engaging brand experience. I love this.
Yeah, it's really fun.
As a fan of the NFL, I love it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's 32 teams, I think. Is that right?
I think so,
in the
yeah.
NFL. So like 3 pieces each kind of thing. It sounds really cool. I could almost imagine how they would use this as like, well, let's get some stuff now. We'll showcase it to all the local audiences.
Totally.
But then at the Super Bowl, we're going to pick the best stuff from
And just put it all
whoever
together.
is the winner. Yeah, that's really smart.
Actually,
That's
that's
a lot of fun.
I wonder if they're basically going to curate all of this into like a Super Bowl ad then. Maybe. Well, watch the space.
Tailgate. Keep an eye out for it. But tailgating is perfect because it's such a disaster.
It's so messy, man.
Yeah, it is really messy. I mean, mustard everywhere, and there's chili and all kinds of stuff.
If you're doing tailgating all posh like, then it's not real tailgating. But
yeah,
it's meant to be messy.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. That'll be fun to see.
What did you find?
Spotify takes aim at YouTube with a new rev share platform for creators.
What?
So Spotify for podcasters is now going to become known as Spotify for creators.
And we're a fan of the app, actually. We use it.
Yeah, totally. So a new program launching in January and trying to get creators to give them a cut of their earnings, of subscription earnings and ad revenue for video podcasts. So it'll be available in the US, Canada, UK, and Australia. And there's sort of a twofold plan. So one, give people more access, or the creators more access to revenue sharing, but also get people to consume more video on there. So for premium subscribers, they won't have to watch videos in their ads. Although the creators can still create their own ads and embed them in the podcast. And so it gives them upside on, creating their own revenue streams that way. So to qualify for the revenue share program, so the creator must upload and host content through Spotify. Makes sense. Have 10,000 streamed hours from 2,000 unique hours in the past 30 days and a minimum of 12 episodes.
We're gonna
So
get
they're
rich.
so yeah, it's coming, and so it's interesting thinking about that platform as like a competitor, because I mean YouTube's got their own music channel and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, it's an interesting space.
We're really close to these prerequisites, by the way, Mark.
Yeah,
I mean, is this
yeah,
our chance? Hey,
could
Spotify,
be.
if you're listening,
2025 is our year.
let's do this. That's really cool. And you could tell because right now, and for those that know, you could actually stream. So we do these Barber briefs. We actually just load the video into Spotify. So if those that want to just see this episode in video format, it's there. Of course, every other platform gets the audio version naturally through the Spotify for creators, but it's they've made it really easy to distribute content, which I have to applaud. And taking this next step into this, you could see
Mm-hmm.
how they're really trying to go after maybe some of that more video audience as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting.
Yeah. What else you got, V?
Really good. Well, I can't do like a barber's brief without something about Google. It just feels like it's everywhere. So, Google to halt political ads in the EU over new regulations. Now, Google implemented strict rules for EU political ads in 2019. Advertisers are required to verify their identity and disclose ad sponsorship. Google also reports on political ads through a dedicated transparency report. All that makes sense. And I think obviously with off of the heels of, oh my goodness, what was the big, man, why can't I remember that? Anyways, it was one of the US elections and it was rigged. Sorry, rigged. I mean, like the way they use social for,
From like the Analytica,
yeah, Cambridge Analytica.
Cambridge Analytica thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think obviously that had a lot of fallout for a lot of the digital platforms and Google, of course, being a part of that. So this decision, though, comes in response to EU's upcoming regulation on the TTPA, which is the Transparency and Targeting of Political Ads.
Mm-hmm.
With Google exiting political advertising in the EU, advertisers, especially small campaigns with smaller budgets, will lose access to one of the most effective and affordable ways to reach some of those larger, more targeted audiences through Google's means. Now, many campaigns rely on those Google platforms, including YouTube, to broadcast their messages broadly and even cost effectively. Now, the big picture here is Google's decision to exit EU political ads is not unprecedented. The company had also done that in France, Canada, Brazil, citing similar regulatory issues. Now, the TTPA's broad scope raises concerns about overreach and the potential for misclassification of issue-based ads as political, which could disrupt advertisers and limit public disclosure on key issues. So there is what is political and what isn't, right? And I think that's where it's going to become really interesting on how this evolves. Obviously Google will cease all political promotion on its platforms in the EU, including YouTube, as soon as TTP takes effect in October 2025. So about a year from now. Now, while Google's exit from political ads in the EU may reduce the reach of smaller campaigns that rely on affordable digital advertising, it underscores a challenge tech platforms face in navigating complex regulatory landscapes. The reason I think this is important for me, it shows again how unregulated we really were. If you think about the last 10, 15 years of digital advertising and things to that effect. And now you're seeing almost, I don't want to say society, but there's a big pushback on these platforms now. And it's going to continue to evolve and change how a lot of these platforms are being leveraged for key issues like politics.
Totally. Well, even like TikTok was just the TikTok offices.
Yeah.
Were
In
disbanded
Canada.
in Canada, but the platform isn't, which is a weird one. Like I
Yeah.
don't understand why you do that. But yeah, like it's funny how all these things, even with X now, Twitter, formerly Twitter, there's lots of questions around with political angle on that. Like there's so many interesting angles to all this.
Well, you brought up X, and it's a good call. Actually, that should have been one of our in the news. The mass exodus that's happening from brands now.
Oh yeah,
because of the fallout, if you will, of the U.S. political election. The Bundesliga, I don't remember how many teams they have. They all moved off. What was the most recent one that I saw just the other day? Anyways,
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
I saw she left.
Anyways, it's one of those things where, again, obviously it's it's changing the landscape.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
All right, final one. What'd you find?
U.S. ad spend managed by agency holding companies. So this is I'm going to share this on the screen here. So yeah, so U.S. ad spend managed by agency holding companies, independent agencies, and brand direct advertisers. So this is one of those classic. I can get rid of this. Yeah, this is one of those classic e-marketer charts. So you can see 2019 till Q1 2024. Red is the agency, like the big agency holding companies. So this is how much media they're managing. And so it's shrinking. The thing that's winning is the brand direct, so meaning in-house. So they're picking up. So there's this, we've had this conversation before about in-house versus outsourcing and agencies. Independent agency billing's relatively flat. But it's interesting thinking about this because there's a whole bunch of implications around that. Like, what does it mean? Like, there's a desire for more transparency along the value chain. There's a sense of control by bringing it in-house.
Mm-hmm.
Retail media is obviously a big thing, and it's picking up a lot of steam.
Yeah,
which is probably driving a lot of this. There's this also switch to short-term tactics. Google, Facebook is the duopoly. That's a lot of people are just betting on those and not going to all these other platforms. Cost savings idea about bringing talent in-house and not having to pay for it through the agencies. And then automation and AI, there's improvements in efficiency and all those kinds of things. So there's like all these underlying stories that are, I think, contributing and driving to this.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting graph in that it's not just about the graph, it's about like the stories behind the graph.
Mm-hmm.
And it was from a guy named Shane O'Leary that published it I saw it because of a post on LinkedIn from him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, really interesting just to see that shift. And what does it mean for agencies? And then what does that mean for in-house? And, are they really more efficient? Are they really more effective by bringing stuff in-house? There's a whole talent development pool thing that's going to have to happen. Yeah, there's lots of implications to doing this. It's a pretty significant shift over the last 5 years.
It's nice to see this visually to kind of showcase like exactly what's happening. Obviously, I would argue since 2021, there's still growth, yes, on the brand direct or in-house models, but it's not growing at the rate that it did, say, from 2020 to 21. And I think what I see the appeal. I understand why this makes sense for a lot of larger advertisers. When you think about things like being quick to market, being somewhat reactive, if you will, just caution anyone that's thinking about like in-housing. It's not just an efficiency story. You have to make sure you're looking at the bigger picture around, what this actually means. You talked about the talent pool. That is notoriously one of the most difficult things to do in-house because it's difficult for you to create that same pool that agencies can, who are working on multiple industries, and you can rotate people through them. Whereas if you're in-housing that, unless you have a lot of different products and there's enough capital behind it, then you can kind of emulate that. But for most advertisers, you're really looking at two products at most. So you're going to be training for those people to move on to the next thing. And that constant pipeline becomes extremely difficult to manage.
Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of an interesting story, just like visually seeing that graph, and then the stuff that's actually behind it is more interesting than the actual story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
You got a marketing moment, V, or in other words, a case study.
A case study. But we're like marketers, so we brand our own stuff. We call it a marketing moment.
Yeah.
So we've talked about CeraVe a few times, and we profile them user for ad of the week. But I actually came across the contagious, what is it called here? Let me pull it up. The Grand Prix Insights that was issued. It's a few months ago, but they had obviously a few campaigns in there. And the CeraVe actually jogged my mind. Like, you know what? We actually haven't talked about it through the lens of a case study,
right?
Which I think is important. So let's go back a little bit. The challenge that CeraVe is what the challenge is. So CeraVe is a skincare brand known for its dermatologist-developed products aimed to increase brand awareness and differentiate itself from competitors. Now, CeraVe was founded by a group of dermatologists back in 2005. It was born out of a desire to create skincare products that were both effective and gentle, addressing a specific needs of people with sensitive skin. Now, the brand's core philosophy is to restore and maintain skin's natural skin barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Key differentiators, oh my goodness, V, can you talk today? Key differentiators are dermatologist developed, ceramide technology, and MVE technology, which is MVE technology is this patent technology ensures that active ingredients are released gradually over time, providing long-lasting hydration with those who sensitive skin would obviously can appreciate that. So what was the strategy? So they looked at the Super Bowl as kind of being like their big crowning moment. And they leveraged a lot of social media influencer marketing and traditional advertising actually to help create buzz, if you will, to drive both the brand awareness, but the affinity. It was leaned on, I think it was 4 core strategies. The first was crafting a compelling narrative. It was the hook. The campaign hinged on a playful ambiguity surrounding similarity between the brand name and an actor's name. Oh my goodness.
Michael Cera or Sarah.
Yeah, exactly. Michael Cera. The build up. So this was probably the most important part is how they kind of built up into like the crescendo, if you will. So it was a series of social media posts, influencer collaborations, and paparazzi style photos fueled speculation and intrigue. Then the big reveal was the Super Bowl ad and served as a grand finale, humorously debunking the rumors and reinforced the brand's core message: dermatologists develop skincare. The second pillar was leveraging social media and influencer marketing. So we talked about Michael Cera, the influencer sponsorships there, but there were also smaller influencers that were a part of it. It's like, oh, we saw Michael at this drugstore, etc. I'm going to go check it out. But that was all planted, if you will. It wasn't in the moment, so to speak. But that led to things like social media teasing. So it just naturally started creating a conversation around why is Michael Cera there, etc.
Yeah.
Also created a lot of user generated content because people just like would go into these drugstores, snap pictures of like CeraVe formulas, and it's like, will Michael Cera come here, or things to that effect. So it created a lot of that organic content. Then third was the mastering of the art of timing, and I think this was probably what made this campaign do so well, because it was very methodical and it worked over a course of not just like a Super Bowl ad. It was, I think it was 12 weeks in the making, but prior to that. So, the pre-Super Bowl buildup, the Super Bowl itself execution, and the post-Super Bowl momentum, where the campaign actually continued to generate buzz and drive sales even after the Super Bowl, thanks to the strong social media engagement that had already been created and the positive word of mouth. And finally, it was the humor entertainment. You've seen the ads and you'll remember the ads, but this one was one of those ads that you were laughing right from the beginning, right to the end, because it just felt so, I don't know what the right word is, but
absurd, maybe
absurd, absurd in a really nice way, kind of.
Yeah, totally.
So it was really lighthearted, very memorable. I think everyone listening probably remembers the ad themselves. So from a results perspective, obviously, did help increase their brand awareness and brand perception. But the most important thing that, at the end of the day, from a marketing perspective, it led to a 25% increase in sales, right? And that's not that's not a bad thing to have as an organization, obviously. And then finally, from an awards perspective, they did win Super Clio for Best Super Bowl Ad of 2024, which, for those that don't know, the Super Clio, if you will, award recognized the most creative and impactful advertising campaign during the Super Bowl. Yeah,
it's cool. It's cool to break it down like that, because there's always like a lot of interesting stuff in the campaign details.
Yeah,
that's cool. And there's because it's not just the pinnacle piece of creative outside of that we all saw. It's cool. That's really cool.
great ad.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to do something like that again this year.
Who knows?
I mean, it would be smart, actually, because you could build on that, and it's not just brand new.
No,
just keep doing the same thing.
The platform exists.
Speaking of which, I've been meaning to actually, this is a perfect timing for that, because remember Flow? I've been watching a lot of TV lately because I've been lying on my couch. Yeah. Anyway, Progressive Insurance was one that you remember they used to have Flo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have Flo anymore. But they
What?
have her like a icon of her head. So during
Wow.
like the football games, it's like the Flow Report or something like that. They sponsor a
No way.
segment, or Game Flow, I think is what it was. But yeah, and then from what I can remember now, like I don't think she's actually in any of the ads anymore because she probably aged out. Canadian Tire guy aged out, right?
That's true.
Which is why I
Gary,
think Geico Gecko is so smart, because it never gets old.
ageless.
Yeah. Anyway,
The
side note.
Outlander. Geico's the Outlander.
Yeah. I've been watching so much TV. I watched
All
the
right.
Tyson fight.
We can talk
That
about
was a
that.
disaster.
That was a disaster.
Yeah. Anyway,
The week.
out of the week. So I actually didn't try to get something fancy or like new even. I don't know.
Okay.
I was interested in like the best campaigns that have ever, best ads ever.
Okay.
And so I was just curious about like what are the best ads ever, and then I was trying to think about what makes them the best ads ever. And then I like, what can we learn from that? So here, I'll just show you. You've seen this, no doubt. Ready?
Let's do it.
Dun dun dun. This one, Think Small.
Okay.
So the Volkswagen ad. I think this is from 1959. So I just was like, I mean, everybody knows this ad. Everybody's kind of heard of this ad. It's a long time ago. Like, why do we even talk about it anymore?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of was just thinking about it. And the reason why I wanted to just bring it up is, well, A, it's a image instead of a video, so we can kind of just look at this and talk about it. But there's some things in here that I think are super interesting. So this is 1959, right? First of all, the bug is still the bug. Like,
Fair.
they've used a distinctive asset. They created it. And they've consistently used it for, help me out with the countdown on that one, like 70 years, 60 years, 70 years, something like that. The other thing that I think is really interesting just is the design of this. Also, remember, this is like back in the day, full page print ad, which is probably like 10 inches by 20 inches. So it's pretty much a billboard in front of your face. And the design of this is so interesting. Like, the design of it is actually really cool because it thinks small. They put a small bug there, Volkswagen Beetle, and then it's like relatively small on the page. But the design restraint to do that and not fill the space with so much other stuff,
But they
it
even get that
forces your
approved.
attention, right, on the thing that's on the page.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting for me from a whole bunch of reasons, including all those things. But I just wanted to like, and then there's this other play here, and I know it was a really common thing with copy in the past where they would put copy at the bottom, but the copy plays a role in supporting this message. It talks about a couple dozen college kids didn't try to squeeze into it. There's like a story that they build in here. And I think like, the logo and all that stuff, it's just a really interesting ad. And for it to be considered to be the best one ever, at the time, like cars were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it's a way of like, I don't want to say differentiating, but positioning.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they had at least another one that I know of, the one called Lemon.
Right.
But yeah, I just thought it was like, there's lots of really interesting things that I think we can learn from this.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Go for it.
I was just going to say,
need to take a break.
I think this is a great idea to create a segment on celebrating advertising of past. I don't know if I'm a little bit being swayed right now. I'm rewatching Mad Men. I'm kind of getting back into like some of the old, if you will. But there's something about the elegant simplicity that existed then, and even this ad that you have on the screen right now, like the bug's not even centered.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like where naturally you try to make it front and center, it's like it's off to the top left of the actual image itself, which I think creates a really peculiar like distance for the eye, because you're looking at the bug, then you're thinking small, so it looks small on the page. Which, if you think about, a lot of brand standards today, it's like you need to make sure that it's predominant, it's easily viewed, etc. I don't know if a
Mhm.
lot of people would be okay with something like this by today's standards. But at the same time, I'm not a creative, so I'm just speculating here. It's
Mhm.
it's being celebrated because someone actually took a risk at that time
Mhm.
as well, which again, something that you have to applaud.
Yeah, and a high, like at the time, high attention medium, and a way to get even more attention by picking a full page ad, but then not using the full page ad. You know what I mean? I mean, you could argue that they used it all, but it's not just cramming stuff in, right? It's really interesting. Like the whole thing is really interesting. And thinking about like all the digital channels and social channels, and I mean, can you imagine like what people then would have thought about the tools we have today to create stuff?
Totally.
And I kind of wonder in some cases if we just try and jam so much into the ads and whether we need to or not,
We do. We do.
you know?
Yep. It's a good point.
Anyway, one of the greatest ads of all time. It was kind of
Thanks, well.
interesting to look at it. Yeah.
Great ad. All right. Coming up next week,
Yeah. What do we got coming up next week?
Nancy Duarte.
Yeah, we do.
Right?
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
great conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We brought her on the podcast to discuss, what makes persuasive presentations, effective communications. Obviously, it's a skill set that we as marketers are very much in tune with when we're constantly creating decks, etc. And it was just a really interesting conversation to hear from her, who's kind of made it her life's work, if you will, getting people become better presenters and storytellers. And I
Mm-hmm.
think everyone's going to enjoy this episode. It was really, really, she was great. Really great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we've joked so often about our job as marketers is in marketing is actually building decks. And it's like
Exactly.
so many moments where both of us were like, oh, I gotta
write it down.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, V.
That's it.
Well, I got through without even choking once.
I was just going to say you survived.
Yeah.
It's
Maybe
amazing.
I'm on the upswing here.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I need that positive mark back. Come on, buddy. You got this.
I'm working my way back there.
There you go, man. All right.
All right. Okay, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Feel better.
Thanks.